It is a ritual that we perform hundreds of times each year. 365 times to be exact. 730 times if you follow the dentist recommended practice of brushing your teeth twice a day. 732 times on a leap year. We don't need to look in the mirror when we brush our teeth, and yet so many of us do. 730 times each year. Imagine what this world would look like if we cared as much about our moral obligation as we do about our physical appearance. For Clergy Institute, an important temple program each spring, bringing together Jewish and Christian clergy to study a topic of common interest. We brought in Rabbi Daniel Hartman. Dr. Hartman is an accomplished author. He's a remarkable speaker, and he's the president of the Shalom Hartman Institute in Israel. His topic this May was theological perspectives on peace and reconciliation, quite prescient given the difficult summer in Israel. Peace, he said, takes at least 3 forms in our biblical text and in our religious lives, the first 2 of which are inconsequential without the third. The first form of peace in Jewish tradition is that of the utopian peace, mentioned in the book of Isaiah. It is the peace of our dreams. It is a peace in which violence and even the natural urges we perceive as violence ceases to exist. It is a peace in which our children will never fear for harm. And it is, unfortunately, the peace of the imagination, the peace of a dream so distant as to be unrealizable, and thus it is a peace that can be paralyzing if we're not careful. Our dreams of a utopian peace alone will not bring about the peace that we seek. Second, Rabbi Hartman raised what he calls the imperial peace of the author of the book of Deuteronomy. It is the peace of our prayers, a peace in which all of those who awe and fear God and who love justice have nothing themselves to fear. It is, unfortunately, also a peace that could prioritize our beliefs over our actions, our creed over our deed, and absolve us of responsibility. Our prayers for an imperial peace alone, he said, will not bring about the peace that we seek. A third type of peace in the Hebrew Bible is that of real or durable peace. It is the peace brought about by human action, the peace that each of us can extend to the oppressed, to the widow, to the orphan, to all of those who are disadvantaged in our society. It is the peace of living our Jewish values in this world, of working to tidy up our corner of the planet. And it is the peace that comes after we set an example which others choose to follow. I mention these 3 ways of looking at peace not because I think they're the key to unlocking the intractable conflict in Israel. While we can easily see how the far left and the far right fall into a theological trap of their own making, it's a different sermon entirely. I mention these 3 models of peace because I believe they're a key to unlocking ourselves. They're a model which we can apply to all facets of our lives. Our dreams and our prayers are for naught if they do not inform and guide our actions. Big dreams or muttered prayers without action in our professional lives won't lead us to a pay raise or increased responsibility or to a greater sense of fulfillment. A wish and a prayer won't bring us closer to an estranged sibling, a sick parent, or a wayward child in our personal lives. And in our religious lives, I believe that offering dreams and prayers without taking action is nothing less than a form of taking God's name in vain. We know all too well that this world is lacking a sense of peace, the sense of wholeness, the sense of shalom that Dr. Hartman mentioned. Pick up a newspaper. Ask your grandparents if you're not sure what that is. When you pick up a newspaper, when you try to stay current in this world, you realize how little peace there is in Syria, in Iraq, in Sierra Leone, in Liberia, and in the Ukraine. And we certainly don't need to look a world away to find people without a sense of shalom, a sense of wholeness in their lives. A short walk on Capitol Hill, or in Bellevue, in Renton, or in Mill Creek, will turn up a world of problems right at our doorstep. We know all too well that this world is lacking a sense of peace. And we know that it's our responsibility to try to change it for the better. And so we dream the dream of a utopian peace. And we pray the prayers of an imperial peace, asking God to partner with us. And still we know that our dreams and our prayers are not enough, that we must act to transform this world according to our values, partnering with God to bring about tikkun olam, the perfection of creation. And so we act. Or rather, we say that one of our highest values is to act. In the introduction to his book, Mesilat Yesharim, a work about our moral obligations, 18th century Rabbi Moshe Luzzatto writes, I have composed this work not to teach people what they don't already know, but to remind them of what is well known to them indeed. For most of what I have to say is nothing more than what people do know and have absolutely no doubt about. But what is said is constantly ignored. It's most often forgotten, because it is common knowledge and is obvious. The frustration felt by Luzzatto accompanies and haunts every moralist. And make no mistake, we are all moralists. Parents passing down their values to their children, partners sharing values with a lover, colleagues creating a better workplace, or children a safer classroom. We are all moralists, and we all feel that same sense of frustration. That which needs to be said has been said hundreds of times before, and therefore is hardly audible any longer. Defend the rights of the poor and the needy, we hear. Remember that you were a stranger in the land of Egypt. No, call your mother already. Moralistic discourse is at a disadvantage because it says nothing new. And yet, that is precisely why it bears repeating. At the risk of sounding a bit crass on Rosh Hashana, let me put it another way. My father is fond of saying that it's hard to remember your first job is to drain the swamp when you're up to your tuchus and alligators. It's hard to remember your first job is to drain the swamp when you're up to your tuchus and alligators. Each successive year brings an increasingly busy life. We're engaged in work and in email, and in projects and in email, in travel and in email, in homework and email and email. And we're busy in ways generations before us would have never dreamed possible. We all lead such busy lives that often what is important takes a back seat to that which feels urgent. Let me say it again. In this world, that which is important to us often takes a back seat to that which seems urgent to us. We lose sight of our highest values in the day-to-day grind of life, and we rely consciously or unconsciously upon our religious tradition to remind us of what really matters. But we're all so busy that we don't actually have the time to listen. Moral discourses, our Jewish values, are at a disadvantage because they say nothing new. And yet, it's not only repetition that makes them hard to hear. Listening to me with even half an ear, really listening, is an invasion of our most private selves. My purpose is to do more than to remind you. That is the job of the moralist. The job of the rabbi is to make it deeply, deeply personal. A sermon which says you're not taking your moral obligations to help others seriously enough feels like a personal attack on the habits and the choices and the excuses that we all prefer. It feels like an attack, mainly because it is an attack on the habits and the choices and the excuses that we all, myself included, have come to prefer. Moral warnings aim to upset what is comfortable and what is customary. And if I can't inspire you, if I can't challenge you, if I can't drop this at your feet and stare expectantly at you until you take action, I've managed to lose my effectiveness as a Rav B'Yisrael, as a teacher of Torah to the Jewish people. We all want to look into the mirror on Rosh Hashana, and we all want to see a good person. We reflect back upon the year that was. We want to see somebody who can change and somebody who can grow, somebody who is learning from their mistakes and who is not repeating them. We want to see somebody who does the right thing, who makes the difficult choice, who stands proud in all of their accomplishments. We want to look into that mirror and feel proud. And we end up looking into the mirror and fixing our hair. As you can imagine, this takes me a tremendous amount of time every morning. Does our makeup look okay? Is that yet another pimple? We can do better. As we start a new year, as we turn a new page in the book of life, I want to challenge each of us, everyone gathered here today, to look in that mirror just a little bit more closely. What would our world look like if we cared as much about our obligation to other people as we do about our physical appearance? The next time you're looking in the mirror when you're brushing your teeth, look past the physical, look deep into your inner being and ask yourself one question every morning. How can I give back more to this world than I take from it? And ask yourself one simple question in the evening. Did I give back more to this world than I took out of it? These simple questions will help recreate you. And together, we're going to recreate the entire world. Did I give back more to this world than I took out of it? You might start small. Say thank you to a friend who is with you in a difficult time, a stranger who holds the door open for you. Share a smile with somebody you know is having a bad day, or with the person sitting beside you on the bus. Recognize that this life is about more than who can create the most widgets, and step out from behind your desk to help those who are less fortunate than us. When you do, you'll be able to look into that mirror at the end of a long day and be proud because you can answer, yes. Did I give back to this world more than I took from it? Realize that you're never too young and never too old to leave each day better than you found it. Volunteer an evening at our homeless women's shelter right here on our Seattle campus. Grab a brown paper bag as you leave this morning to fill with the food you would otherwise eat on Yom Kippur. Not just the stuff you want to clear out of your pantry, but the stuff that you would want to be eating while you are fasting. Join us as we make a meal to serve to those who are homeless and in need. Join our team that helps do landscaping and painting, allowing elderly folks to stay in their home long after they might otherwise be able. Participate in the Friendly Visitor Program at Klein Gallon. Make a contribution to a favorite charity, whether it is 5 digits or 1 digit, because when you do, you'll be able to look into the mirror at the end of a long day and proudly answer, yes. Did I give back more to this world than I took out of it? Begin to lead the team at Temple or at your school or in the workplace on which you used to volunteer. Convince others, your children, your parents, your family, your friends, that each and every one of them has the power to change the world in which we live one action at a time. Start to allow this ethos to permeate your conversations with other people, teaching through your words about the causes you are passionate about, and through your actions to begin to make a change. Write letters and send emails and cast ballots to make sure that your elected officials know the values by which you live. When you do, You'll be able to look into that mirror not at your hair, but deep into your soul. And you'll be proud because you can answer, yes. I could go on, and I will, just not in this sermon. I know many of you are already doing these things. I know that you're already working on great projects, and I want to hear from you. When you're doing something great, tell us. Let us know if you need additional volunteers. Let us know how we can replicate, how we can create the social action ethos that each of us feels and tie it once again to our Jewish values. So we, the Jewish community, is doing some good in this world. I want Temple de Hirsch Sinai to be the very first place you think to turn when you're thinking about expressing your social responsibility to this world. And I promise to do my part to make that happen. 3 times this coming year, we're going to focus on core issues to the Seattle community. Weekends filled with education and advocacy and action. Each month, you're going to continue to receive a list of projects taking place, one at least every single week. Come join with other Temple members. Strengthen our community while together we're working to make this world a better place. Each and every day, I hope that you will find ways to embrace that we are an essential part of something larger than ourselves, that we have a moral responsibility to act in this world. Did I give back more than I took? Act. Inspire others to act. Only through our actions and our dreams can we inspire our action, and only through our actions can we make our dreams and our prayers come true. Permit me, if you will, to end with my favorite story. There was once a king who had a long and splendid corridor. He was really proud of this hallway, which seemed to stretch on for as far as the eye could see. It was broad and full of the most beautiful marble. And yet, as a king is wont to do, he began to dream of something more. He invited 2 artists to come, the very, very best in the kingdom, and he promised them riches beyond their imagination if they would simply paint his hallway. Both artists accepted the challenge, and they started to work the very next morning. The first artist looked the length and the breadth of that hallway. He began to take measurements. He ran back and forth, sketching ideas on the wall and getting excited about his project. The second artist simply stared at the wall. The first artist began to mix paints and hire laborers to fill the hallway with drawings and scaffolding, preparing for his masterpiece. The second artist continued to stare at the wall. The first artist began to fill in those designs, and as time went on, as the competition drew to a close, the first artist stood back from his masterpiece and wiped a paint-covered hand across his brow, smiling at the beautiful work that he had created. The second artist continued to stare. The second artist, however, stayed a bit later into the night, and when both artists came back to the palace the following morning, to have their creations judged, the king asked them to wait outside while the king went to look at the splendor by himself. On one side of that hallway stood the greatest masterpiece known to humanity. On the other side stood a large mirror. The king allowed both artists to enter, both with smiles on their face. "Well, I never thought it possible," the king exclaimed. "There is a tie. Please, both of you, come back tomorrow to receive your riches." The first artist was angry. He was apoplectic. He tore his garments and he screamed at the second artist, who had effectively, through very little work, stolen his magnum opus. He left in a huff. The second artist simply began to smile. They returned to the palace the following morning to find a huge pile of gold coins right in the middle of that big and beautiful hallway. The king welcomed both artists, and presented the first artist with his reward, with riches and gold coins and treasure beyond his imagination. The second artist stood by expectantly, and when the king dismissed them, the second artist said, "But king, you said it was a tie. You promised me riches." The king smiled at the second artist and said, "Go ahead, look in the mirror." In the year 5775, each of us, as we brush our teeth in the morning and in the evening, is going to look into the mirror 730 times. What is it that you are going to choose to see? Is it going to be something that makes you proud? Commit with me to leaving this world better each day than you found it, to giving back to this world more than you took from it. And with these simple questions, like the first artist, the rewards will be beyond our imagination. Shana tova umtuka, may it be a sweet, a happy, a healthy year full of action as together we strive to make this world a better place.